For as long as I've been in the wine trade, winemakers have consistently said it takes a lot of beer to produce amazing wine. And because I don't want them to start slacking anytime soon, I'm going to be sitting down with some of my favorite winemakers and getting them all to take on DasBootiful Cape Winelands Challenge. The challenge itself is all about chugging down a locally produced craft beer while still appreciating the world-class wine. Now let's find out who the quickest winemaker is. Welcome to another delicious episode of DasBootiful Cape Winelands. Today I'm sitting with Christo Kotze from Vierge wines. Christo, lekker to see you again. Thanks a lot for being on the show today.
Thank you.
Before we jump into things, how are you feeling? I mean, you're looking a little bit worse for wear today.
Yeah, Christmas was a bit rough.
And also, what were you doing yesterday? I mean, you were also having a bit of a bash yesterday.
We played a bit of social cricket. But yeah, it was very social.
I can see you moving around like a little bit stiff today.
Yeah, it's not as easy as it used to be.
Okay, so Christo, let's get started here. Vierge, can you just take us through what the name means, and also what makes Vierge so special or unique compared to the other producers in the Himalayan Order Ridge?
So yeah, Vierge obviously translates to the Virgin, which refers to when the property was first bought.
Okay.
There wasn't anything established here, so it was all virgin soils. And from there, basically we started developing the property as a whole, up until a point now where we're sitting with 42 hectares of vineyards, predominantly focused on Pinot and Chard.
Okay.
What I reckon makes us unique in the property as a whole is we sit with a very unique area. As you guys saw when you drove in, it's a bit of an amphitheater of different aspects and slopes. But with that also we're totally dryland farm, so
okay, wow.
which is quite cool because we have seasonal variation.
For sure.
And almost every season tells its own story,
Yeah.
which is always lekker. Gives you a bit of a different idea, or an idea of how every season develops.
For sure.
Yeah.
So what allows you to actually do dry farming? Is it because of the terroir that you have, because it's cooler than if you were in Stellies, or?
Yeah, I think, well, in a sense, yes, but also we are fairly lucky in a sense where in this time of year, going towards November, December, January, we do tend to have a little bit more moisture.
Okay.
So we do get a little bit of summer rain, which does help it out. But in general, a vine is a pretty hardy thing, so it can actually handle a bit of stress.
Okay.
And it's a bit more hardy than we think. So a lot of stress is obviously not a good thing, but it can get away with a lot less than we expect. You know? So that allows us to pretty much.
So is that what dryland farming contributes to these bunches, is greater concentration?
Yes, in a sense, it's a bit more of a struggle to get there, and I think the stuff that is actually produced is of a bit more of a concentrated quality, I would say.
Okay, lekker.
Yeah.
So Christo, out of all the crazy occupations that exist out there, what is it about winemaking that drew you into this craft?
To be honest, the honest answer is I just thought it was cool. I was really young when I decided I wanted to make wine. I was like 12. I didn't even drink wine at that
really?
stage. But yeah,
But
I just thought it was like super cool. And we had a family friend that was a winemaker, and I just thought, yes, I want to do that. And as I got older, I think that's where the passion actually started to develop, because then I actually got a bit of an idea of how everything is so variable, but it's almost uncontrollable chaos in a sense.
Yeah.
But that chaos sort of makes a product which is, great at the end of the day, because it's got those flaws, it's got those, identity.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Of a GPS spot in the
Yeah,
world.
yeah, for sure.
And that's I love that. And every year is not the same, and you're still dealing with different things. And
for sure.
I think that bit of chaos is something that kind of drives or intrigues me every year.
Organized chaos.
Yeah.
I think that's what a lot of people don't tend to realize, is how much work actually goes in behind the scenes. It's one thing walking into a retailer and getting yourself a lekker bottle of wine and safing it out the night and be like, oh, that is excellent. But little do they know the wear and tear, the blood, sweat and tears that goes into the making of that wine. Sure. And I mean, it's just around the corner, harvest around the corner. You must be prepping yourself up.
I'm stressing a little bit already, yeah. So it's always this time of year, you always start to think, shoot.
Have I still got it in the tank?
Your palms get a bit sweaty and you're like...
That's not from the hangover.
No.
So Christo, in your own opinion, what's the most important stage when it comes to the winemaking process?
I'd say, obviously, for me, I see myself very much more involved in the vineyard side of things. So for me, it's all about picking dates, or just understanding your wines even before it gets to the wine production side. So just understanding where the vineyard's at, how the bunches are looking, in terms of is there anything to start worrying about, because that's what you can't. There's no real faster recipe in a way. You kind of have to improvise as you go, and I think that's where it becomes important to know your vineyards, and then also just to identify when to take fruit off. Can it hang a bit longer? Can it not? Is it a year to maybe pick a bit earlier? Those type of things. And that for me, that's the most important, because from there, my whole philosophy on winemaking is trying to or just basically show what I'm doing out there in that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Or as close to as possible, I'd say.
Yeah, because I know like one of your neighbors, Kevin Grant, I mean, he likes to say that he's not a wine farmer, he's a dirt farmer.
Yeah. No, it's and that's important. I think so it's as much as as I said, my philosophy is more based on we're farming a specific site, and I'm trying to do that site justice when I get to this, and if that means I'm not the person that says you don't have to do anything. I mean, some years you have to work harder than other years, but in general, the less you can do. Sometimes it's difficult to do nothing.
Is it?
Yeah. Because, no, because your natural reaction is always to intervene.
No, of course. For sure.
So it's actually sometimes just monitoring is more difficult than actually doing sometimes, because you have to stop yourself and say, whoa, okay, just give it time.
Yeah, you shouldn't be fiddling too much, I think.
And luckily, I must say, for this area, we're really blessed in that sense, where we don't have to fiddle too much. Maybe like all of us, I mean, playing with half a gram of acid here or there or something like that. Yeah. But that's minimal, and that's not every year as well. I mean, in general, acids are fairly good, so we don't have a problem with that. Sure. So we're lucky in that sense, and I think that allows us to not have to do too much going further.
Kristen, now the varietal in focus today is Pinot Noir. So for those out there who might not know too much about the varietal, can you maybe just speak us through the general flavor profile of Pinot Noir?
So what we tend to get is normally, it's a nice mix. On some of the warmer slopes we tend to get a bit more red fruit outside characteristics, where on the cooler slopes, more easterly facing, it starts to become a lot more darker fruit profile, a lot more spice driven notes. So it's traditionally a younger Pinot for us will show something a bit more of a darker cherry component to it, and then as it picks up a bit of age, it goes a bit more tertiary in bottle. But that combined with a little bit of spice notes here and there, and also if you add a bit of stems, it also gives you a bit of texture and whatever. But so there are many different styles, but in general that will be the profile that you sort of get from here.
Yeah, I think a lot of people out there aren't properly prepared when it comes to tasting a developed Pinot Noir, because they do tend to get a bit funky, but that funkiness is something that's so incredibly sexy, isn't it?
Yeah, I think for me that's that's why Pinot is it's a bit of a geeky one, to be honest. It's not everyone drinks Pinot or understands Pinot in the beginning, and that's because it's something you have to get used to.
For sure.
And but saying that, I think the most general misconception, I think, is that Pinot, because it's lighter in color, it's going to be lighter in structure. And I think once you start drinking different Pinots from different parts and all over the world and whatever, then you start to realize that even with less color pigments, you still do have structure and tannin, which is an important part of Pinot as well. So I mean, and that's actually, I think, the most unique thing for me about Pinots is when you start tasting these massive Pinots, but it's not like wood bulky stuff. It's tannin structure, and I think it kind of blows your mind, because you pick the glass up and what you experience is something totally different, So it's also known as a bit of a heartbreak grape. So it's you either hit or miss normally. So it is a bit of a finicky one, and it does give you a bit of grey hairs.
Well, in a few more,
you're doing well.
In a few more minutes' time, we're going to be seeing whether you hit or you miss with this one. But now that you mentioned that it's a heartbreak grape, when it comes to Pinot Noir, people always talk about it's a Pinot Noir tax. Can you maybe just explain what this tax is?
It's my second language. No, I think it's definitely probably to do with, you got to earn your stripes. I think, it's definitely, you don't rock up and just start making Pinot. I think it's something you definitely have to learn over time and also understand, because it's kind of like, I remember you mentioned Kevin earlier, like he was obviously sort of my mentor in my first year when I started here. So, and he explained it to me really well one day. He said, like, when you make Pinot, it's funny, I've got a pee on my hat today. Like he said, when you're making Pinot, you have to take your red wine cap off and you put your Pinot cap on.
Yeah, nice.
And
Kevin, if he ever watches, Christo took note.
Yeah. So, and I think I didn't really understand in the beginning, because I thought, okay, also I'm trying to figure out what works for me and whatever. But I think when you start making it, then you realize that it is a bit more finicky and there's nowhere to hide. Yeah. I think in a sense where if you over extracted or worked it too hard, it shows. If you under extracted, it also shows. It's a fine balance to make something which is, I'd say, decent. Yeah. So it's something you do learn over time, and I think you also have to. It's more just about understanding the varietal as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, Pinot Noir, it is quite, like you say, it's a finicky grape to work with. It requires a specific kind of terroir and climate, and you have to be careful when you're managing the varietal itself. So at the end of the day, these wines do tend to command a much higher price than other wines out there. So don't be afraid of paying a little bit more for Pinot Noir. There's method behind the madness. Yeah. So Christo, throughout your wine appreciation journey, what's the one wine that has remained your favorite wine of all time?
Shoot, I think for me it's more about an experience of a wine. A couple of years back we did a trip to Burgundy, and I mean, we went to Romani Conti and to name a couple of others. But
that's crazy.
But it's so I mean, sometimes that experience sort of outweighs one specific wine. I'd say, and that's why also those experiences are always going to change. So the wine, in my sense, will always also change.
100%.
With that. So so I think for me it'd be difficult to say one wine. To be honest, I might be a bit of a draadsetter now. But it is, for me, as I said, I think the experience should always be, that creates that wine on the moment,
I fully agree with you. The one thing that I've heard so many times as well is that, you might buy wine from an establishment and then you speak to these people like, this wine didn't taste the same. But it's like, it's not going to taste the same, because you have to it's all about context. Like, who did you taste with? What was the weather like? What was the conversation that you were having? What were you eating with it? It's never going to taste the same. And I think that's one of the reasons why the culture of wine has existed for so many centuries. So Christo, one more question for you is, in your own personal collection of wines, what's the most prolific wine that you're currently holding on to? If you want to share that kind of information, of course.
I think, I think what most sentimental one that I have at this stage is, I've got a 2001 Bordeaux Port, which obviously I'm not going to open very anytime soon, because a mate of mine, Bernard, gave it to me a couple of years ago. And I think that wine I'll only open up, like, say, on a very special day.
Nice.
So it's, I think that's the most sentimental one, So yeah.
Okay, Lego. Well, listen, I think that's enough mumbo jumbo from us. How's about we get down to putting some liquid on our lips, boy?
For sure. Let's do it.
So Christo, now that this wine is officially open, can you maybe just speak us through the production that's gone into the making of this specific wine?
Yeah, so this is a single block on the farm that it goes into a wine which is called the Apogee, which is defined as our pinnacle, and we reckon this block is a very consistent, very a block that we idolize in a sense. So we're pretty proud about it. And in terms of the vinification side of things, fairly standard. I mean, this was also my first year in 18, so I tried to keep it very simple. Didn't want to reinvent the wheel necessarily at that stage. So basically just destemmed it. There's no whole bunch in this, no stems.
Sorry to interrupt, but that's not really something that's heavily practiced when it comes to Pinot, isn't it? Isn't most of the production
Yeah.
done a whole bunch?
A lot of what I do now, but for me it was just about in the first year just trying to see where a baseline is.
Okay.
And working from there, because obviously I was new to the property as well, and I just kind of needed to find my own bearings.
For sure.
So try to keep it as simple as possible. I don't, it's basically pumped over. I don't do any punch downs on this. It was just basically cap wetnings for 10 minutes twice a day. So not a lot of working on the juice very hard. Did macerate for about three and a bit days before cold soak, before things started ticking, just to homogenize the juice a bit better and get a bit of, just settled everything down after movement. And then very lightly pressed, went to barrel, to 8 barriques for just over 10 months, or initially, and then it was blended again and put to third fill barrels for another 5-6 months, just to give it a bit of post blending élevage. And that was basically it. So it was still very small production at this stage, but as I said to you earlier, like this is a new brand, and we're also starting to work into its identity as we go forward. So
it's the acidity of this wine still after all these years is spot on.
Yeah, and that's what I said. Like for us, it's about we're lucky in the sense where we sit in an area where we have stuff like that. It's to work with. So does make the job a bit easier, especially for, I'd say, prolonging, because acid in a sense is a bit of a life factor. And,
100%.
It's the wine's life, so we don't have it, it'll look good for a couple of years, but then it will fall apart. And so it's pretty much important to have that balance.
Yeah, I love the fruit on the wine, but I also like this little black tea note that's coming through. And also, like you mentioned, tannin of the wine earlier. In my opinion, and I think, not in my opinion, but when it comes to Pinot Noir, tannin is not necessarily something that you're really looking at, but this one has got great tannin. It's got excellent structure, and the texture on the palate is it's wowzers. You can taste that this is your flagship wine for sure.
Yeah, and it's got a lot to do with that's especially up in the ridge here. It's definitely something that we in terms of we tend to get a bit more structure in the Pinots, where down the valley it tends to be a slightly bit more lighter, especially in the middle section of the upper, and then you go down to the valley side in the bottom of the valley, and it becomes a lot. The soils are similar, but we tend to get a bit more structure, a bit more fruit presence, where they tend to be slightly darker, I'd say, in fruit profile, and a bit more spice notes. And, so it's lucky to have a difference.
Just this one is clapping it. This is some really good winemaking. And considering this was your first vintage, for the farm you did an exceptional job.
Thanks.
Also, the one thing that I'm enjoying is the fact that we're actually drinking out of proper glassware. So while we're on this glassware topic, how important is glassware, and does it really play a huge factor in the way the wine is going to, tell you its story?
I'd say yes, but it doesn't mean you have to do that.
Yeah, no, sure.
I think it's obviously important. If you're drinking a good bottle of wine, the glass does make a difference. Just proper crystal thin glass normally does taste a bit better than a old Dick wine glass. You remember those being ones. So it does make a bit of difference, but again, it's an occasional thing. If you don't doesn't mean you have to drink it out of that. I don't think that's the goal. But it does make a difference for sure.
Definitely giving a swill like this is making me feel rich and famous right now.
Don't break it.
But Chris, I think it's a good time to cut a long story short over here. For as long as I've been in the wine industry, winemakers have consistently told me one thing. They say to me, Gareth, it takes a lot of beer to produce good wine. And Christo, because I want you to continue producing wines of this ridiculous quality, I think it's time that you pay the piper and you take on DasBootiful Cape Winelands Challenge.
This season's beer sponsorship comes from the Kennel Brewery. Today's beer is the Lager Door, a lager. Unfiltered lager with a medium body and a crisp taste. A malt-forward beer with a light honey and nut backbone.
Okay, so Christo, it's time to pay that piper and take on DasBootiful Cape Winelands Challenge. You know the rules. It's all about chugging down a locally produced craft beer as quick as possible and trying to earn that number one spot. You can see over here, these are the winemakers that have taken part thus far. Hagen is some other kind of mutant doing it to 8 seconds. People are struggling to take him down. And then shame, poor Rain over here is struggling away at the bottom. So when I did that episode with Reno, he had this he was constantly, as long as I beat Christo, as long as I beat Christo. So is there like some kind of a little rivalry that you've got going on?
I've got to beat him. I mean, luckily the ball set quite low. So.
Yo, that's smart. Okay, Reino, if you're watching this, you need to chat to Christo. But yeah, Christo, let's get ready to take this on. How are you feeling? Are you feeling first? Are you ready to take on a beer?
Bit pop, no.
Bit pop from yesterday's shenanigans.
Bit of beer, the dog will help.
Okay, lekker, that's it. Okay, so Christo, you can hold the beer in your hand.
Okay.
And I'm going to count you down from 3.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1. You, this guy's going for it. You can see. Yes, it's looking good, Christo. Go for it. 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 Go. Woo! Yo, lekker, man. It's still looking good. It's still looking good. Nearly there. One more sip. There we go. How do you think you did, Christo? Well done.
Niks we doen. You're right. Backlash hard.
You know, so Christo, the first time we met each other was actually in Bohemia.
Yeah.
You used to come in there and lekker save yourself silly. So I was expecting big things from you today. So how do you think you did? What do you think your time was? Where do you think you're going to fit in and amongst all these winemakers?
There was.
Hey, right in between those two, you're going to come in there. So you're going to be occupying that spot at... Your time is going to be 22.25. So no, that's not bad at all. So let me actually just put it up here.
What I know. Yes, how long did I take?
Lekker, well done. I think that's a pretty strong time. Considering that you had quite a big one yesterday.
Yeah, yes.
And all it takes is just one more drink to bring back yesterday's happiness.
Yeah.
So Christo, listen, I just want to say thanks a lot for taking on today's challenge. Thanks a lot for taking us through your wine, letting us taste your wine. I think what you're doing is absolutely amazing. So keep up the great work, and we can't wait to taste obviously the newer vintages of the wines when they're released.
Thanks, Joe.
Cheers, man. Have a like one and have a good new year.
Thanks. Cheers, guys.
Cheers. So folks, that was the Apogee Pinot Noir from Vierge Wines. If you'd like to get your hands on that prestigious juice, all you have to do is just follow the links below. My crowdfunding campaign is still a go if you'd like to make a contribution and stand a chance of winning a bottle of each of the wines that are tasted throughout the series. You can just scan the QR code over here in the corner. So that brings us to the close of another superb episode of DasBootiful Cape Winelands. Until we see each other again, I'd like to remind you all to be kind and drink good wine.
And beer.
And beer. Cheers, Christo. Thanks a lot.
Okay.